Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley, and I tell you, we're going to be talking about a absolutely much needed topic. We're going to talk about teenage anxiety, depression, and how that's a major growing problem in our society today. And a lot of things that we're going to talk about. We got the absolutely wonderful Paula Shaw. I just watched her show, and it was a wonderful show because she was talking about this particular topic and how it affect lots and lots of our youth and teenagers and young adults. And a lot of times, us as parents, we don't realize that it's a negative effect because all we want to do is protect our kids, and we don't always try to figure out if there are issues or problems that they might be going through, especially going through a lot of crises that we just went through, like COVID, uh, the COVID crisis, which shut down schools and kids were not in the same environments and were not able to actually be around each other for quite some time. All of these things, I believe, could have a negative effect to things that are happening. But I cannot even start a show without talking to my wonderful executive producer and co-host, Dr. Michelle Cooley. How are you doing today? I cannot hear you, Dr. Cooley. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but there is no volume coming from you, and the audience cannot hear you, and there's no volume coming. You might want to sign off and come back in. But we got this absolutely wonderful guest, Paula Shaw, that's going to. I tell you, I just watched her show a few minutes ago. Absolutely amazing with the young lady that she had on her show, and basically, I'm not sure if Dr. Cooley, we got volume there or not. Uh, no, we do not. So um, Michelle, log off and log back in. But Paula, we want to get started with this because there's so much that
Okay.
I believe that we need to unpack. And first of all, we're going to talk about follow up what your show just did. And that was a very courageous young lady that you had
Wasn't
on your
she
show.
something? And I didn't get to mention on the show, but I will. I'm going to ask her if we can put her paper in the show notes because this gal was incredible. And 15, I thought she was 16. At 15, what she came up with, and she could have written on any topic she wanted to write on, but she chose teenage anxiety and depression and called the paper The Overdue Conversation.
The overdue conversation. Dr. Cooler, you there? Okay, something is certainly wrong with her stuff. We cannot hear her at all. So but the overdue. I mean, but I would love to see that paper, Paula.
I will make sure that you get it. I've got the paper now. I just want to get her permission to put it in the show notes. Excuse me. And if she's good with that, we will definitely do that.
Oh, absolutely. And Paula, since Michelle is not going to do her absolutely fantastic intro and go all off into this, can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you? I know so much about you already that you're my friend and you're doing some remarkable things and you're helping so many people out.
Oh,
That are going through trials and tribulations until my over. It could be a lot of different things. We are so happy and fortunate to have you and others that's in the healthcare industry or just in the industry of helping folks out to be able to help us get through some of the problems that we might have, and especially the topic that we're going to talk about today. So,
yes.
can you take a couple of minutes and tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about Paula Shows, what you
Sure.
do, how you are helping so many folks out, and how you're going to continue to help everybody out?
Thank you, JC. I appreciate that opportunity. I am an author. I have written 3 books and just happen to have them right here. Uh, this one was called Saying the Right Thing When You Don't Know What to Say. I never know exactly how to hold that so I don't get the glare. And that's really a book to help people who are going to have difficult conversations with other people dealing with emotional pain. Um, the second book was actually a partner to that book. This actually preceded Saying the Right Thing When You Don't Know What to Say. And this one is called Grief. When Will This Pain Ever End? And my first book was actually an offshoot of the work I was learning and doing in the field of energy psychology. And that book is called Chakras, the Magnificent Seven. And one of the things I have found in the work I do is that if we move beyond talk therapy and we actually start working with the energy system, which includes your biofield, your chakras, those meridian centers, the energy centers in the body, and the meridian system, which is the same system they use in acupuncture. If you work with the energy as well, it really helps a person shift more quickly and more dramatically. So, those are the 3 books I've written as an author. I am also a speaker. I love to get out and talk to people about these topics because many people in the world don't even know what energy psychology is. And finally, I am a life transition coach. I work with people who are going through all sorts of life transitions. And that could be anything from the job loss to the loss of a significant person in your life, whether through death or through um, breakup, whatever might come along. So, in those 3 areas, I deal a lot with the topic of grief. And as I was saying in my show, when I just interviewed Dylan Stolba, this amazing young lady, grief shows up with many different faces. We always think of tears and sadness, but depression and anxiety, which we're going to talk about today, actually can be manifestations of grief that's unhealed.
Wow. You know, so the topic that we're going to talk about today is just like I said, is so extraordinary because many of us as parents and only thing we want to do is protect our kids, our children, and a lot of us want to be friends with them
Mhm.
and not really understand because it kind of passed by us when our kids are having problems, sometimes things that are going on because
Yeah.
we're so nurturing of them that we just bypass all of those things. And many of our youth and young adults, they are hurting, they're
Mhm.
depressed, they uh they went through COVID-19. They went through changes that took them out their environment, what they was used to doing. I
Right.
mean, growing up, being around their friends and just growing. A lot of us don't understand that when you take people out of that environment, it could cause a mental disorder. And
Mhm.
so, and especially with our youth. So, Paul, my first question is, why do parents not recognize? I mean, many times that their kids are not just, oh, they're just having a bad day today.
Yeah.
They'll wake up tomorrow, they'll be better, and not understanding that you might have a problem. Now, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and this ties in so well with what you were just saying, JC, because I'm not sure exactly what generation it began with, but certainly mine. We were past believing everything Dr. Spock said and past thinking that, spanking children was going to change them for the better, and past letting go of ideas like a child should be seen and not heard. Those were the kinds of things people were saying and believing when I was growing up. But when I became a parent, we knew more than that. There was such a thing as parenting classes. and we were trying to do it better. But you know how it always happens when something has been too extreme in one direction, when the pendulum swings, it swings all the way back in the other direction. And so I think some of us became too protective of our children. We were trying too hard to spare them going through pain. And as my research showed, what ended up happening is we haven't allowed our children the opportunities to develop resilience, to know they have the tools and the capability of working through hard times and overcoming them. And so I think what happens, we become so invested in our children being happy and successful. When we start seeing manifestations of something that doesn't look like they're happy and successful, our first inclination is to trivialize it, to say, oh, they're just having a bad day, or, oh, he's just frustrated over this relationship, or, oh, school's a little bit difficult right now. And I love that you asked me this question, because one of the things I tried to stress in my show is don't go there, parents. Check it out. See if there's something deeper. Of course, hopefully that would begin with a conversation with your child. And a great way to open the door to those kinds of conversations is to be honest about yourself, your own fears, your own sadness, your own anxiety. That gives them permission to be human and not need to feel like they have to be perfect.
Wow. And you mentioned that, and a lot of us as parents uh, got that macho. We don't want to show ourselves as being once upon a time might have been vulnerable or something like that.
Yeah.
But if we don't share our true self, um, our kids are not really going to see that we was once kids as well,
Yep.
and that it's the potential that we went through the same type of feelings that they might be feeling now. So it's
Mhm.
okay. I mean, so parents need to just open up, I believe, and share those feelings with them, to let them know that, hey, I was once your age and I do understand.
Yes.
How can we get parents to do that more often?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Oh, my goodness. Well, I think if we start in the schools, because that's one thing all our kids have in common, they go to school. So whether it's parenting classes that the school sponsors on particular topics, like, oh, I would urge every school have a night where parents can come and learn about teenage depression and teenage anxiety. What are the signs to look out for? And what action should you take if you see those signs? That could be a great beginning, because it would be a free presentation, so it's affordable for everybody. And for many people, I think it would be an eye opener. And, JC, in this day and age, particularly right now with the economic situation we have and having just come off a pandemic and all the economic setbacks, a lot of parents are working real hard. They're working long hours. And so they don't even have the time to focus on what's going on with their kids. And so if their kid is spending a lot of all their spare time on a screen, it's so easy to chalk that off to, oh, that's what all the kids are doing these days. But no, see that as a problem. If your child's not engaging with other human beings through conversation, through hanging out, through movement, playing a sport or taking a walk, see that as a problem. Really try to make the time for those deeper conversations. And as you were just sharing, JC, to be vulnerable yourself, open up about what it felt like when you were a kid, or something that you went through, or something that happened to you, and how it felt at the time. And then maybe even how you were able to shift it, how you got out of that, who helped you, what helped you.
Wow.
Can be valuable.
You know what? We're gonna take a station break, but we're gonna come back, and we're really gonna dive off into this, because this is so needed in our society. Not just, I'm talking around the world also, but it's so needed. And we have to have these discussions with the parents, with our communities, with our youth and young adults. So I tell you, wherever you're watching it from, whether you're watching it 360 television, whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're watching it on over 35 of the live streaming platforms, welcome to the show. And if you want to be part of the show, all you have to do is go to the comments. Ask this absolutely wonderful, sensational guest of mine, Paula Shaw, any question that you might have. And I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll be back shortly after the break.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? And everything that you do.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I got my absolutely fantastic guest, Paula Shaw. I've been on the show quite a few times, and again, I cannot thank Paula enough because the reason I'm in radio and television right now is because of her. It's because of her. Yeah. So, and she always bring it. I'm talking about always. Come up with these topics that are so needed in our society. And this one today is really, really needed. And if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is go to whichever platform you're watching on, ask any question that you might have. Promise to get you an answer.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Dr. Cooley. How you doing?
It's fine. My computer needed to restart. I do have all these updates to do, so I'm glad I'm here. So I just want to, continue with the show and ask Miss Paula a couple of questions.
Yes. So I tell you what. Why don't you start with the topic, because it's we know that today's topic that Paula came up with is so valuable. I want to delve off into this because Paula, how big of a problem is this, especially with our teenagers? The girls and the guys. How big of a problem in society that you think that this is?
Well, in a major study that was done by Blue Cross and Blue Shield between 2013 and 2018, the percentage of diagnoses of major depression had gone up 33%. And they're finding among adolescents 47% of the rise in diagnosis of major depression is with boys, but 65% is girls. So depression is definitely an issue throughout society. It's an issue that is experienced more by women than men. But the men are pretty fast on our heels right now in terms of having themselves diagnosed with major depression.
So, Paula, what are the common misconceptions and myths regarding depression and anxiety that you've heard of in your research?
Ooh, that's a great question, Michelle. There are so many, but I think what one of the things that's most prominent and part of what I tried to urge when I was discussing this topic earlier is don't just chalk off your child's behavior as they're having a bad day or oh they didn't make the track team or that sort of thing. Yes. So sorry. Yes, those kinds of experiences can produce sadness, a lowered energy level, that kind of thing. What we're really looking for when we look at those symptoms, and I'd be happy to share the major symptoms with you if you would like me to. But
Yes.
what we're really looking at, are those symptoms prolonged? Is it just a 1 day or a 2 day kind of experience, or is it more prolonged? So, with major depression, these are the kinds of symptoms we're looking for: loss of interest in activities or relationships that used to be enjoyable, fatigue and loss of energy. Remember, depression is a lowered energy state. So, this is one of the first things we're going to see if it becomes a problem and not just a bad day. Having a hard time concentrating, unexplained aches and pains, headaches and stomach problems, insomnia, or sleeping all the time, low self esteem and feelings of worthlessness. When those kinds of feelings are prolonged, that definitely can be part of a depression. A sense of despair, sadness, and hopelessness. Now, let's face it, if your child's girlfriend or boyfriend just broke up with them, they're going to be feeling all of those things: despair, sadness, hopelessness. And it probably won't be a 1 day event. But if this goes on for weeks or months, now we're looking at true depression and we need to step in and do something. Significant weight loss or weight gain. Of course, using alcohol or drugs to medicate those feelings. And then, most serious of all, if there starts being talk or thinking about suicide, then you need to take action right away. Oh, Michelle, we lost your sound again.
Yeah, I think we lost her again. But wow, those are major signs. What about anxiety? What's the difference between what's no understanding the signs of
Yeah,
anxiety?
signs of anxiety. Good question. Nervousness and agitation. Remember, anxiety is almost the opposite of depression. Depression, everything kind of quiets down and we go into this sort of numb state. Anxiety, everything gets activated because it's based on fear and action. So you would see more like nervousness and agitation, sweating, excessive sweating. After a workout, we want to expect that, but sweating, nausea and dizziness, difficulty concentrating, exacerbated heart rate, irritability and anger. I think that's one we often see with anxiety. And of course, just fearful, worried thinking all the time, that being the predominant thinking. And then inability to sleep calmly and peacefully. Those are definite signs of anxiety.
You know, I was listening, watching your show, and one of the things that you brought up in your last show is some of the conditions that causes these rises in anxiety and depression is the lack of communications. I'm talking about verbal communication. You had brought up where you had girls doing sleepover,
Yeah.
five or six young ladies doing
Yeah.
sleepover, and it was silent in the house or wherever, and someone opened the door, and all of them was communicating with each other on text message.
Yes.
Is social media a major cause or problem for
Yes.
depression and anxiety?
Totally. Totally. And first, I want to make a quick comment about what you were saying about that slumber party. You know,
I think
it's interact with other humans through talking, through laughter, through body language. You can't do any of that through text. The best we can do is an emoji that may, what's the word I want? May look like the emotion that you're feeling, may imitate that emotion.
I believe that we're taking some internet hits, and
And the interaction. So dangerous. I truly believe it's dangerous. But let's come back to your question about social media. You know, the problem with social media is if I am now observing what somebody's posted on social media, I can't help but compare my insides to what I'm seeing there, to their outsides. Now, that person might actually be miserable. They might be dealing with depression and anxiety in their own life, but that's not what I see in the post. And so, if I compare the way I feel, and maybe I'm feeling depressed or overwhelmed or scared about what's happening politically, whatever I'm actually feeling, I'm now comparing to a presentation of what somebody's feeling that they chose from 10 pictures or that they purposely created to look that way. So we're not even really dealing with real life. If you come up to me, JC, and you go, "Hey, Paula, how are you doing?" And I'm actually on the verge of tears, you can see that something's not right with me no matter what words I speak. And that helps give you cues about how you should interact with me as a fellow human being. But if all I see is a picture of you smiling and going, "Yeah," I'm thinking, wow, JC's got a great life. Everything's going his way. And I don't know if that's true or not. And you don't know if you see just a fun picture of me or making a silly face and saying everything's coming up roses. You don't know if that's true or if I actually just did that for 30 seconds and then went in the next room and burst into tears. So social media creates a lot of pressure for our children because they're believing what they're seeing and they're feeling like they don't measure up.
Wow, and you're absolutely right, and I think it's a major problem when because we don't have that human interaction like we used to,
Yeah.
and especially with 13, 14, 15-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And, at that time it's so valuable that they're able to be together, talk, learn from each other, grow, and just engage.
Yeah.
And so when I believe when they're not able to do that, sometimes that create what I call peer pressure and major factors because they're only used to pretending on Texas and social media, and just like what you just said, they're not really presenting their
Mm-mm.
real selves or their real feelings at that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's kind of like, we're trying to respond to each other within a false reality. I mean, that word poser, it's sort of like social media makes posers of us all. And then how do I expect you? And you may remember Dylan shared with us one of the things that helped her heal the most from her own anxiety and depression was when others opened up and shared about their experiences. Well, that's just the opposite of what happens if you go on social media and all everybody's sharing is, oh, this wonderful romantic thing, and oh, my new puppy, and oh, my new dress. And it's like, wow, The whole world is happy except for me. And then you can't help but feel defective and alone. And therein lies the rub. When you feel defective and alone, it's nearly impossible to heal from anything. Then we don't have what we need. What we need is to be able to interact with other humans who go, oh God, I've had that experience too. I felt that way too. Isn't it awful? And then you go, yeah. And then you commiserate together. And then you go, what did you do? How did it get better for you? And now you've learned something real that might help you.
Wow. And all of these are so, so important. Paula, we're going to take a station break. But,
Okay.
we got a lot to cover. So, and viewers and listeners out there, if you want to be part of this, all you have to do is go to the comments, ask any question that you might have, and we'll get you an answer. Join the conversation. It's Your Life from Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life, and I tell you that last segment really is an eye opener because we really need to be more engaged and understand what's going on in our children's minds, environment that we have them in. We still can be very protected because that's just how we are, but we also have to understand that there are certain things that goes into ensuring that they are able to learn and continue to grow because they are going to be our future leaders of tomorrow. We have to let them grow. Sometimes it's mistakes. Sometimes they make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Sometimes but we have to learn to deal with them. They have to learn to deal with them. They have to be able to communicate with us and let us know what's on their mind because right now, suicide rates for teenagers and depression rates and all of those things are probably highest ever, and we have to be able to communicate and get those down where open communication resolves a whole lot of things.
Mhm.
And Paula, we were talking about, social media. We were talking about texting. We were talking about all of those things. I want to pick it back up from there because,
Sure.
uh, you know, we talked about the peer factor, but we also talked about excessiveness on the computer.
Oh,
Is
yes.
excessiveness or the use of the screens and all of that stuff, is that contributing even more to the issues that we are having?
Boy, absolutely. I'm so glad you went there, JC, because I was just thinking about that very thing. First of all, we've been talking about the importance of interacting face to face, interacting with other humans. And when we're in front of screens all the time, let alone the issue about the EMFs and what that's doing to us, and how our brains are being affected by the blue light and all that other stuff that they talk about. But also, there's actually something now called, oh, I got to find my note and give it the right title. When you don't get outside enough, they have now coined a term, nature deficit disorder. And this is happening to our teenagers because they're not getting outside and playing street games or ball or the kinds of things we did when we were kids, shooting hoops and getting fresh air and sunshine, having that D3 created in their bodies by the sunshine. They're sitting in rooms, sometimes dark rooms, with nothing but the light of that screen on them. And so this is actually causing physiological issues. The fact that they're not getting the social practice of interacting with other humans is causing a lot of problems. It's also putting them in situations where they tend to isolate. I mean, we all know about these gaming groups where there could be 10 people in the group. One might be in New York, another might be in Texas, another might be in California, another might be in France. They're not really interacting except about the game. And I'm not saying don't ever do that. In moderation, that could be a fun experience. But I know people whose husbands, retired husbands, spend 10 hours on games. Kids who, if their homework's done, they're spending the rest of the evening on games or the entire weekend. And I really feel strongly, JC, parents have got to step in because A, it's not good for the kids to be exposed to screens that many hours. And B, so that they're not picking up the telephone and having a conversation or going to get a Coke and a hamburger with friends like we used to do when we were young.
Wow.
Not good.
It's not good at all. Do you think that today's teams have the same degree of resiliency as, just like what you saying, when we was growing up and we had all these things, and our parents wasn't really worried about us out in the street doing a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be very conscious today, and I believe that that might have an impact on a lot of the things that society is bringing us right now. What are your thoughts?
You know, resiliency. In the beginning of my show, I talk about change causing upheaval and how humans don't like change because they hate the discomfort of the unfamiliar. But resiliency seems to be the answer. If you know you can bounce back, if you know you can deal with it and make a change or change the circumstances so that it feels better, that's empowering. We humans have to know that for ourselves, even when we're children, because mom and dad are not always going to be around. We have to grow our self confidence, our self love, our just knowing that we're okay. And a lot of that comes from working through the adversity that comes our way. And if we don't do that, if we don't get those experiences because mom and dad are always picking up the pieces, or somebody's making the phone calls for us, or writing things for us, then we don't know. Here's a little story I want to share with you because it's kind of a fun victory for me. I can remember a time when my daughter was very upset with me. My daughter and I adore each other. Erin is an amazing human being. She was very upset with me because all her friends' parents had written their college essays for them to get into college. And I was a busy therapist at the time, and I was a single mother, and I didn't have time for that sort of thing. And quite honestly, it didn't even enter my mind to do it because I believed she was capable. Well, guess what? You know, some of those kids, yes, they did get into schools, and some excelled and some didn't. But my daughter is a writer today. She makes a living. She's written 3 novels. She writes for online magazines. She's currently working on her 4th novel. Because you know why? She knew she could write. She got herself into college. And if she hadn't, then yes, I'm not saying don't sit by your child's side and offer help or suggestions, but don't do it for them. Then they don't learn they have any power. All they learn is that, wow, I better go run to mom or dad if I need to make this work because I don't know what to do.
Wow. And you did the right thing. And Erin, we got to get her on the show. We've been talking about that for years, and we haven't made it happen yet.
Yeah.
Paula, I want to go back a little bit and talk about some of, we talked about the symptoms, but we talked about some of the reaction from uh, teens when they are not getting their attention. They sit back by themselves. They start doing certain crazy stuff like taking pills and cutting themselves and
Yes.
all of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I think Dylan, my little guest, the 15-year-old, summed it up in that the worst place to be is to feel alone and powerless. Like you don't know what to do with these awful feelings you're having, and there doesn't seem to be anyone you can talk to about it. That sense of feeling alone, and even worse, if maybe your best friend has rejected you or ended the relationship, or your parents went out of town and then this crisis happened to you, which obviously they couldn't help it, but now you feel alone and abandoned. And a lot of times self-hatred creeps in, especially because there's a level of shame that people still have, even today, even with therapy being as common an experience as it is. A lot of people feel a level of shame when they're not functioning normally and up on their game, as they say. And so they tend to withdraw from talking about it and withdraw from groups. And then behaviors like cutting can start. And, some kids have told me they cut to try to release this bad energy they feel like they have inside of them. Others have told me that the pain makes them feel better because somehow they believe they deserve it. But no matter what reason a kid is cutting, it's got to be addressed professionally. That child really needs help because I have seen it happen. And one of my clients, when she wasn't my client before this happened, almost died because she was cutting herself and she cut a vein. And then she was scared to tell anybody. And she was bleeding out when they found her in the bathroom. And fortunately, she lived. But this is serious. It's not just scratching skin. It's an act of self-hatred. It's an act of, just not wanting to be in your life and being in extreme pain. So we need to take these things seriously. When kids get into excessive drug and alcohol abuse, that's not just what kids do. There's something they're trying to distract themselves from. There's some level of pain that's become unbearable. And so if I ease it with drugs or with alcohol, maybe I'll get through it. That's the thinking. But we know that indulging in drugs and alcohol only creates other problems. And now things pretty much inevitably get worse.
Wow. Hold that thought, because we're going to have to address this when we get back on some of the treatments that might be out there to help resolve uh, these issues, because these are major issues. And so I tell you, if you want to be part of the conversation, you already see what's going on. Parents out there, I'm almost sure that what Paula has said, some of you all probably see that type of behavior and might not be doing anything about it. That's a problem that we all have to address together. We're going to take a station break, but we're going to come back. We're going to pick it up from there. It's Your Life from Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life, and my absolutely fantastic, my fantastic friend, Paula Shaw is here. And again, Paula, I am just so grateful and thankful for all that you have done for me and that you continue to do. So I just so thankful. I want to put a plug in. I just released about 8 days ago, a Black Man point of view, mind, body, and soul. I went #1 instantly, and not just #1, but #1 book that was released that day. On Amazon and a lot of it's you can get the book on anywhere on all platforms. All right now, but I just want to thank you all for making sure that we got the message out. It's a great book, and it's not. I know the title say Black Man point of view. This is about all men and women. If you ever want to know what's going on in a man's head, you need to read this book, especially a Black man head. What some of the challenges that we have, but it's about all men, and it's about just life in general. So, and we got a couple more publications coming out, a couple more books that's going to be released in the next couple of weeks and 2 weeks. So it's just a pleasure. I want to get back to and another thing, our viewers out there, the subscribers. A couple of days ago, we went over 13,000 subscribers. You all are absolutely fantastic. So thank you. I want to return to this what we're talking about right now about our youth and some of the things that we can do as parents, as a community, just making sure that we meet the needs and understand that our kids don't always come and say, "Mommy and Daddy, yeah, help me, help me." We have to be able to understand when they are needing help, and we have to be able to understand if you go upstairs in their rooms or something, and it's always dark and always silent, just like what Paula was saying, they sleeping all the time, they don't want to do anything. That could be a problem. That could be a problem. Paula, you talked about cutting and drugs and all that a second ago. What are uh, some of the ways that treatments that we could get for our youth and young adults to help prevent this or get them some help to
Yeah.
get them back on the right track?
Yeah. I do believe that treatment is critical. Sometimes treatment comes in the form of a really understanding mom or dad or an aunt or a grandma or somebody who's just what that kid needs. But sometimes it really needs to be handled by a professional. And from professionals, there are different kinds of therapies available. So it's a great idea to let your teen have a say in what therapist they go to, or let them know. Most kids I deal with, their parents tell them, if you don't want to go after the first time, we'll find somebody else. And fortunately, usually they want to come back, because once I really care about them, which I really do after that first session, I'm hoping they allow me to help them. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a therapy that is all about changing the thoughts, and that will change the behavior and all of that. So that's primarily talk therapy. And most interpersonal therapy is based on talk. The reason I was drawn to energy psychology is because, of course, there is a talking component, but then we use methods that work on the energy system. Like one many people have probably heard of is called EFT. So as I'm talking about the problem, I might be tapping these meridian points, which are the same points they use in acupuncture. And what we've now seen through clinical studies and through research done at Harvard is that, for example, if I'm tapping this point on the side of my eyes, on the bone, not the temple, while I'm thinking about something upsetting, this tapping is sending calm, and the amygdala is that part of the brain that prepares you for fight, flight, or freeze. And so it's telling my brain, it's okay. You can chill. You don't have to overreact. So this is incredibly powerful for using with teens, particularly they might feel really kind of naked and helpless without you with them during all those days in between sessions. So I love giving them those kinds of tools. One teen I had that was really anxiety ridden and was cutting, I had her use the LifeWave patches, which have no drugs or alcohol. I had her use the one that's anti-stress and the one that was for depression. So that helped her feel like she had a little suit of armor to put on when she went out into the world every day. Exercise is huge in alleviating depression. In fact, in a study that was done, get a load of these statistics, JC. In an 11-year depression study of 33,908 people, researchers found that 12% of depression cases could be prevented completely with only 1 hour of exercise a week. They also found out that 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week was as effective as antidepressant drugs. Huge. Nutrition. Let's remember that what we eat makes up who we are. And in other studies, they've found that changing the nutrition of children was really helpful in healing. And finally, mindfulness. mindfulness, meditation, prayer, prayer, whatever you do to sit quietly and go inside for a while can be really helpful to what you're experiencing here on the outside.
Wow. Paula, you know we're out of time right now. You're looking at the clock just like me. But how can people get in touch with you if they want to enlist your services? Because you are absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank
Tell
you.
them how can they get in touch with you?
Best way is my website, paulashaw.com. And if there's an option there to set up time for a complimentary consultation. And I'm also can be reached at 626-864-0756.
Also, be sure to tune in to the Paula Shaw Show every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, E360 Television, YouTube, a lot of other live streaming platforms. You will be delighted. Paula,
Change It Up Radio, it's called. You won't find it under Change It Up Radio.
Change It Up.
Paula Shaw.
Yeah, Change It Up Radio. Paula, I got excited.
Thanks.
So hey, it's always a pleasure. You got a standing invitation on my show anytime that you
Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much. So thank you for coming. Thanks. I want to thank Dr. Michelle Cooley for putting together another absolutely fantastic show. I always have to thank our listeners for tuning in to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life. And I got to leave you all with this. I want everybody to have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, but always dream big, think big, and be big at everything that you do. We'll see you all next week, same time, same place. It's Your Life.